Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all very much for attending this session on workplace travel plans today. My name is Mel Cannell, and I work for Birmingham City Council's Travel Demand Management Team. No doubt, like many of you, I've had to get used to new ways of working in the last few months, including using Teams. So if there are any technical issues, please do flag this using the chat function, and we'll aim to sort it if we can. I'd be grateful if everyone could put their microphone on mute. I think most of you have already anyway, and also switch off your video for the duration of the webinar. And hopefully this will make the sound quality better for everyone. If you have any questions during the webinar, please also feel free to type these in using the chat function, and we'll do our best to answer. And my colleague Jill Brooke will be manning that area. Also, just to let you know, we are recording the webinar. So presenting today, we have myself, Mel Cannell, and my role involves supporting Birmingham businesses with producing travel plans. I'll be talking about what a travel plan is and why it's good for workplaces to have one, particularly as some of the lockdown restrictions are gradually eased, but we do need to continue to plan for a new normal for the foreseeable future. We're also really pleased to have with us today Nick Butler. Nick is Modeshift STARS National Accreditation Manager, and he'll be giving you more information about travel planning using Modeshift STARS. Also from Birmingham City Council's Travel Demand Management Team, we have Rebecca Hawthorne, who will give you a brief overview of Birmingham's draft transport plan and the recent development of an emergency transport plan. So I'm going to kick the session off today with a really quick quiz. You're not being tested, obviously. It's just to get you thinking about the importance of travel in our lives. If you want to use the chat function and type the answers in through this, then please do. Otherwise, just have a read of the questions and consider what you think the answers might be. So number one, we have how many hours did the average Birmingham driver lose to congestion in 2018? Was it 60 hours, 205 hours, or 134 hours? Number two, more than 1 in 4 of Birmingham's residents is obese. Is that true or false? And number three, how many tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions does cycling in the West Midlands save each year? Is it 23,000 tonnes, 5,000 tonnes, or 50,000 tonnes? So moving quickly on to the answers. The average Birmingham driver lost 134 hours to congestion in 2018. Now this could be your colleagues losing valuable hours of their own time or of their working time. And number two, it's true. 1 in 4 of Birmingham's residents is obese, which is the highest instance in the UK. The way we travel can make a big difference and have a real impact on our health and well-being. Number three, every year cycling in the West Midlands saves 23,000 tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions. Now this figure is taken from the Sustrans Bike Life report of 2019, and according to the same report, 10% of residents cycle at least once a week, and 30% of people in the West Midlands don't cycle but would like to. So this report comes from before lockdown, and we can be pretty sure that these figures will have changed in the last few months. One of the few positives perhaps to have come out of lockdown is that more people have been enjoying the benefits of cycling. So we really do have a fantastic opportunity here to ensure that this continues. So this information, I hope, helps to highlight how the way we travel can have a huge impact on so many aspects of our lives, including health, stress levels, our time, the amount of pollution we create, the economy, and the list goes on. This also explains why we're so keen that workplaces in Birmingham have a travel plan. Not only are you in a great position to help tackle some of these issues, but you can also benefit from implementing an effective travel plan. So what is a workplace travel plan? I'm sure some of you will already be familiar with travel plans, or you may have already been involved in preparing one. Travel plans can be created for all sorts of settings. They are commonly created and used by schools as a way of encouraging healthier lifestyles through walking, scooting or cycling, and making the roads around schools safer, friendlier, nicer places to be with fewer cars. Many businesses also have travel plans. This may be for the same reasons that schools have them, to identify ways to support sustainable travel, such as walking, cycling or using public transport, or to reduce the need for travel. A workplace travel plan can target staff, visitors, fleet operations and deliveries. It really depends on the type of workplace that you are and what you want to get out of it. Apologies, just go back. Basically, a travel plan should help you to audit your site, carry out a staff travel survey, highlight any barriers to active and sustainable travel, and help you to put together a package of measures to achieve a change in travel behaviour. In Modeshift STARS, the package of measures you decide to introduce forms your Sustainable Travel Action Plan. This can and should help to provide all sorts of benefits to workplaces and individuals, and we'll look a bit more at this in the next slide. Finally, apologies, seem to be moving through the slides there. Okay. No, dismiss. I think somebody's taken control of the slides. Just a moment. There we go. Okay. The slides seem to have disappeared. I'll just try and get them back.
Yeah, just to say the way that we're running the slides is within Teams, which means that theoretically anyone can take control, but please don't. If you can possibly avoid the urge to take over the presentation, that would be great.
I will just go back to where I was. Okay. Right, so I think I was just on this bit. In Modeshift STARS, the package of measures you decide to introduce, I think, as I said, is called your Sustainable Travel Action Plan. And this can and should help to provide all sorts of benefits to both workplaces and individuals. Finally, travel plans may also be requested as part of a planning condition, and in this case, they are compulsory. So moving on to the benefits of a workplace travel plan. I've provided here a list of just some of the benefits. There are others. It does really depend on the type of workplace and your goals. In other words, what you want to get out of the travel plan. As you can see, some of the benefits listed are particularly relevant in the short term, given the situation we're facing with COVID-19. For example, looking at ways that your business can help staff continue to work at home or return to the workplace if they need to. Other benefits include helping staff to prepare for Birmingham's Clean Air Zone, which, although now postponed until 2021, is still happening and remains an essential part of Birmingham's response to the dangerously high levels of air pollution we have in our city. So following staff support, we have more motivated staff. Flexible working policies can help to motivate staff and make your business more attractive to employees as people are keen to achieve a better work-life balance. Healthier lifestyles. Walking and cycling are, of course, really good for us. Healthier staff can also lead to improved productivity. Savings. Cycling and walking are cheap or even free forms of travel, which is excellent for individuals, and fewer people driving can also mean businesses are able to achieve cost savings on land used for car parks, for example. Finally, the last 2 points I'll cover together. Corporate social responsibility. Many businesses and organisations want to do their bit for the planet and the local environment, and customers and clients are really keen to know what green credentials you have. The great thing about Modeshift STARS is that it provides national accreditation and also rewards your workplace for its efforts to encourage and enable active or sustainable travel. And I'll now pass you across to Nick Butler, Modeshift STARS National Accreditation Manager, to give you some further information about effective travel planning and the Modeshift STARS travel planning tool.
Hi, can you hear me, Mel?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Good stuff. So I'll crack on. Thanks for having me. Birmingham Council is certainly one of the best supporters of Modeshift that we have, and we're delighted to be working in partnership with you guys on the Modeshift STARS scheme. So just quickly to introduce who Modeshift are, we're a national membership organisation for sustainable travel, and we have over 90 local authorities that are member organisations. But equally, we work with corporate organisations, businesses, schools, consultancies, and a range of others to bring about increases in levels of sustainable and active travel. Hopefully this will advance. So just to set out what our vision is, we have a strategy for Modeshift, and we aim to be the centre of excellence for the promotion of sustainable travel choices in education, workplace and community settings. And linked to that specifically, we have an aim to establish a standard and level of implementation for travel plans. So travel plans are produced weekly across the country in various local authorities and organisations. But we want to really establish a best practice level for those travel plans that are developed. And ultimately, through doing that, recognise excellence in the delivery of sustainable travel initiatives in schools and workplaces. Our tool for doing that is the Modeshift STARS scheme. So that's what we're talking about today. So STARS is that centre of excellence that we're looking to establish. And again, it's sort of a repeat that it's for education, business and community settings. So we work right across schools, businesses and for residential travel planning. And in the future, we're looking more at transport hubs, town centres, basically anywhere that people travel from and travel to. You've already heard the what a travel plan is, but Modeshift has its own definition. So to quickly take you through, we say that a travel plan is a population-wide strategy for travel behaviour change that can be applied to any setting. And again, the repetition, it's for education, business and community settings. The travel plan itself includes that evidence and rationale to secure commitment and funding to support sustainable travel. So we have that evidence and rationale through the site audits and the surveys that are undertaken. So we sort of assess the transport needs of sites and the transport needs of the people that travel to and from those sites. And really importantly, an effective travel plan that is delivered does go on to bring about a change in how people travel, whether that's to levels of walking, levels of cycling or to public transport. Why Modeshift focuses on it? Well, as I've said, it does help solve travel and transport issues, and that's unique to each site. Every site has its own specific set of travel and transport issues that they're looking to resolve. The travel plan does help to resolve those. As Mel's already said, it helps you to meet your CSR objectives. And really importantly, and one of the key reasons that a lot of businesses state that they develop their travel plan now is that it supports the health and well-being of staff. Also importantly is that travel plans not going anywhere. They are a statutory part of the development control process. So any new development that gets put in place as part of the process, as part of the application they put to the local authority, they are required in that development process to produce a travel plan. And there's just a little note there from the planning policy guidance on transport. It states travel plans should be submitted with all planning applications for developments likely to have a significant transport implications. The key point in that is that these travel plans, and I said already, they are being developed weekly. They're being submitted weekly across the country by various developers and organisations. But there is sort of varying levels of the type and the quality of those, and more specifically, whether those travel plans ever get delivered or not. Sorry, my slides have just closed. And that point sort of highlights the fact that travel plans, whilst there's lots of work going on them, there's lots of development, there's lots of time, lots of money being spent on them, those travel plans aren't always effective. And that's what Modeshift want to address. We want to switch the emphasis from the focus being on producing travel plan documents to actually delivering those documents instead. We deliver a lot of training around the country, and I often mention that the most expensive travel plan I've ever heard of was up in the northeast, a little town called Newton Aycliffe. There's a sort of a factory area, a development area where there's a whole range of warehouses, and one of the warehouses openly admitted they spent £30,000 on their travel plan document for the planning process, but didn't actually do anything with that document. So it was just a £30,000 strategy, if you like. So ultimately, if that travel plan's not delivered, we believe that it's a huge waste of time, money, resources that could actually be spent on achieving things instead. So we want to change that. We want to change the focus to the delivery of the document. And that's why we have the Modeshift STARS scheme, to recognise and reward those sites that do deliver their travel plans. We've been on a long journey so far. It's 12 years ago now since the Modeshift STARS system launched. And it launched on the back of something called the Travel into School initiative, where every school in the country was targeted to have a travel plan by the end of March 2010. That was largely achieved. There was 94% of schools nationally created a travel plan during that initiative, but there was recognition amongst Modeshift members that there was no status, there was no difference between a school that had a travel plan in place and a school that was actually delivering that travel plan and achieving results with it. So that's why accreditation was brought about, to recognise those schools that were increasing levels of walking and cycling to school. In 2012, so for the first 4 years, we were a paper-based scheme. Schools had to keep heavy evidence files of all of the stuff and the work they'd been delivered, and at the end of each accreditation window, they would have to post that onto us. So in 2012, we moved to an online platform, which made it a much more streamlined process, not just for creating the travel plan document, but for actually evidencing what was being delivered as well. In 2014, then, in fact, a year earlier, the government announced they were going to set up a national award scheme for schools that excelled in promoting walking and cycling to school. So we had a good 12 months of talks with various stakeholders, local authorities and the Department for Transport, to say that the Modeshift STARS scheme already existed. We had 22 local authorities participating at that point and around 300 schools. And we were delighted that in 2014, the DFT decided to back us as the National Award Scheme then. In 2015, we then had our first ever National STARS School Travel Awards event. So as well as the accreditation, the bronze, silver and gold accreditation we have, the local authorities can now nominate their top schools each year, when we now hold regional and national level awards for those schools. And then on the back of that, the Modeshift members sort of fed back to us that the scheme was great. It was really working for their schools. Schools were starting to implement their travel plans. So this demand grew for the STARS scheme to be expanded to include workplace travel planning and residential travel planning as well. So in 2015, STARS 4 was launched as a platform for other types of organisations to create their travel plan using the online system. It took us around 18 months to then develop the accreditation ratings for the STARS 4 scheme. That launched in 2017, and very quickly Next PLC became the first site to achieve STARS business accreditation for their site, their head office site in Leicestershire. And then just over 12 months ago, in April last year, we launched the Modeshift STARS business scheme. So STARS 4 was the sort of the working title of the scheme for that first couple of years. But ultimately, we wanted to have a much more streamlined process to really represent this centre of excellence for travel plans. Modeshift STARS became the name for all of our schemes, with then the different categories. So we now have Modeshift STARS Business, Modeshift STARS Community, and Modeshift STARS Education. So essentially, looking in more detail at what the scheme is, it is basically an online toolkit that lets businesses, schools, residential organisations develop and create their travel plan and ultimately implement their travel plan as well. So all of that stuff that you need to do, that personalised site audit, that survey tool, the action plan, all of the monitoring that goes with it, sits in that online portal and lets you put together your travel plan on the online system. There's a quote that I like to share here from Next PLC, who used the system in the early days and continue to use it now. So they said they find the system easy to use and very self-explanatory. They say it can be used by experienced travel planners and beginners. What you often see in a travel plan, particularly those that are submitted for development control purposes, is the first 20, 30, 40 pages sets out policy context and background. Really, there's no specific national standard or need for that information to be included. What we're really interested in a travel plan is what is happening at your site, how do people travel, what facilities are in place, and what are you going to do to improve the situation for all of the users of your site. So what the travel plan system does, and what Next allude to here, is it strips it all down to the information that is relative and required. And then a question we're often asked is how long does it take to create a travel plan on Modeshift STARS? So what Sarah adds here is that the first travel plan they submitted took 2 weeks to complete from start to finish, and that was doing 2 hours a day during the time. And they say that previous plans they've done using other systems or other methods have taken 6 to 8 weeks to complete. So great feedback from Next that it has streamlined the process for them there. Just to look a little further at the STAR site, so it also allows you to monitor and evaluate how your travel plan's going. Essentially, it's built on a massive Excel database, which means that we can use pivot tables in the background of the system to help you with all sorts of monitoring on reported on how people travel to work, what sort of infrastructure you've got in place and how that's been improved, what initiatives you're delivering and how many people took part, and they can all be compared against one another to give you that reporting data. As I've already said, the real focus is on delivery. So this is our route through STARS, if you like, where you start up at the top where you register for the system. Once you're in the system, you conduct your site audit and undertake your travel surveys. Then you plan and deliver a range of actions. Now, in too many places and too many areas, that's where the travel plan stops. It stops at we've got a travel plan in place, and then we fall down on the delivery side. The idea with Modeshift STARS is that you then continue, you deliver your actions. Once you've delivered a certain number, you'll be able to submit for accreditation. You receive that accreditation, but then the journey doesn't stop there. The travel plan should be this ongoing process, this live process, where you're continually improving your site and improving the travel situation for staff and visitors. So you stay in this loop of continuous audits, surveys, planning and delivering more actions, and working your way up the levels of accreditation. Here are our accreditation levels. So these 3 accreditation levels, bronze, silver and gold, apply right across all of our different types of travel plan. So a bronze travel plan is for a good travel plan that has a range of initiatives, but importantly that have been delivered. So it's not about an action plan of what you will do, it's evidence that you have delivered those. The silver award is for a travel plan where you've taken that a little bit further, you've delivered more, but importantly, you've achieved a reduction in single occupancy car use to the site. And then gold is for the outstanding travel plans where that reduction in car use has been significant. Just to point out at this stage, we are actually introducing 2 new levels in the autumn, which will be a green travel plan, which will be your base level before delivery begins, and then a platinum level that has a real focus on reducing private vehicle use and specifically increasing levels of active travel, so walking and cycling as well. I like to share this quote. It's something I've been involved in sustainable travel for quite a lot of years now, and this quote from Chris Boardman recently kind of sums up why. So he said back in February, pick a crisis: congestion, obesity, inequality, air pollution, global warming, safety. Whichever one it is, investing in cycling and walking is as close to a silver bullet as you'll get. Improving how people travel really can have a big impact on all of those things. And that's only really been highlighted even more by the current COVID-19 crisis. The fact that life has come to a stop in so many areas, but despite that, walking and cycling has been given even more importance shows now more than ever that if we address how people travel, we can have such a huge impact on so many areas of life. And the problem for us is that all of those things are massive grand challenges that it doesn't feel like any one of us as an individual or a single organization or business or even a local authority can affect on our own. So what we're trying to do as Modeshift is redress that slightly and really show that an individual travel plan and how you choose to travel daily can make a huge difference to you locally as well. So implementing that travel plan, making it safer to walk and cycle, promoting public transport, gives us cleaner air locally, and we've seen that with CO2 emissions reducing by 17% globally over the weeks of lockdown. It gives us safer roads, and people must have seen that people out and walking and cycling recently are enjoying those safer roads, although there has been sort of evidence of traffic speeds increasing in that time as well. So that's something that can be addressed by a travel plan as well. As Mel's already said, it saves people money, and then ultimately it makes you healthier. More cycling, more walking, less emissions from private vehicles. We're all going to be healthier for it. And it does work. As one of the first slides I said that effective travel plans do work. So these are our latest statistics for the STARS education system. The map on the right there shows where all of our STARS accredited schools are. So it truly is a national scheme. And amongst those STARS accredited schools between 2015-16 and 2018-19, collectively, all of those schools that have achieved accreditation have seen an average reduction in car use of 9%. And that's corresponded with an increase in walking of 2.4% as well. But it does work for workplaces as well. It's early days for us. We don't have the numbers to be able to do as grand figures as those that we have for schools. But next were the example we gave earlier, and they've seen single occupancy car use to their head office drop from 79% to 49% over the 3 years of delivering their travel plan. And that's through the delivery of their effective travel plan. This is my final slide. So it's just to stress how we work. So my absolute first slide was how Modeshift works as a membership organisation with local authorities, partners. This diagram basically shows how that's set up. So we have the Modeshift Management Board, a group of volunteers who are all local authority staff who give up their own time to run the organisation and run our best practice sharing events, training, meetings, various other things. We then have the Modeshift STARS team, but there are actually only 3 of us that work nationally to support all these people that you then see around the side. So we have now 70 local authorities that use the STARS education scheme, which was previously 20 before we had the support from the Department of Transport. Those local authorities represent around 15,000 schools. We then have the support of the Department for Transport for the National School Travel Awards, and also the National STARS School Travel Awards panel, who assess those applications that come in. And then from a business and community side, we have 25 local authorities that currently use the scheme. Over 500 businesses and community organisations that have developed their travel plans using the system, and then supporting them a range of corporate organisations and transport consultancies that are working on those travel plans. And this for me really depicts why sustainable transport is such an exciting area to work in, because as that group, as this team Modeshift idea, we can work in partnership to have some real great impact in terms of increasing levels of sustainable and active travel, but also providing the platform for us all to recover as the lockdown is eased, and make sure that we recover strongly with everyone able to travel to and from work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I'll just take control of the slides again. Just need to go back one there. Yep, so thanks very much. That was brilliant, and a really useful insight into effective travel planning, which also explains why the focus of Modeshift STARS is on delivery, and also how we can get away from creating a document that takes hours and hours to put together but doesn't actually achieve very much. We really want travel plans to achieve something. So moving on now to why now is a good time for workplaces to create a new travel plan, or indeed to update an existing one. So many businesses have been operating in different ways during lockdown, and people are encouraged to continue working at home if possible. Now, this is likely to be the case for some time. So updating your flexible or agile working policies could form part of your sustainable travel action plan. If people are returning to the workplace, they are urged to walk or cycle whenever possible. So your travel plan can help you identify ways of enabling or encouraging this. For example, ensuring people have access to suitable cycle storage facilities, as well as information about local cycle routes, or even perhaps provide some sort of incentive or challenge to encourage staff to walk or cycle a bit more. Many people continue to rely on public transport to make essential journeys, so our operators are ensuring that this can happen as safely as possible. Workplaces need to be sharing with their staff the government's safer travel guidance, and our colleagues at Transport for West Midlands are on hand to support with this. It's vital that we have a green recovery from lockdown, and Birmingham City Council is fully committed to this. To enable social distancing, footpaths on the high streets in both Kingsheath and Erdington have already been widened, and there is more to come. My colleague Rebecca will shortly be talking to you about Birmingham's emergency transport plan and some of the other measures being taken to enable social distancing and to prioritise walking, cycling and public transport. Finally, the last point on this slide is just to remind you that now is a good time to create a travel plan, because Modeshift STARS is free to Birmingham-based businesses and organisations. And on that note, support from our team is also free, and you're very welcome to contact us. So the vision for our city is to have a sustainable, green, inclusive, go anywhere transport network. That was the vision before COVID-19, and it remains the vision. Having a travel plan will help your workplace prepare for and support the changes we're seeing in Birmingham and the wider region as well. Birmingham has already embarked on a radical change to the transport network, including more and better cycle routes, improved public realm areas and major improvements to public transport. Some of these improvements will now be accelerated, and as I said, Rebecca will fill you in a bit more on this in a moment. As I mentioned previously, Birmingham remains committed to making the air cleaner for everyone and becoming carbon neutral by 2030. So Birmingham's Clean Air Zone, although postponed until next year, will still be happening, and businesses really do need to prepare for this. And nationally and globally, the climate crisis and being kinder to our planet remains a high priority. So it can be good for business to be recognised for your green credentials. And on this note, in autumn of this year, we're planning a celebration event for workplaces. And it would be really excellent if we could showcase all the good things that workplaces are doing here in Birmingham, and even perhaps present some of you with Modeshift STARS accreditation. I'd now like to pass you across to my colleague Rebecca Hawthorne to give you a bit more information on Birmingham's emergency transport plan.
Thanks, Mel. I'm just taking the slides from you. So, although the main purpose of this webinar was that we wanted to talk to workplaces about travel plans and what you can do, how we turning to work as and when they are able to, I think it's useful also to just give a little bit of context of what we as the City Council, particularly as we've just published our emergency transport plan, and that's essentially what I'll be talking through, but there's the URL up in the top right hand corner. Sorry, I'm being told I'm getting network issues, so I hope you can still hear me. So the transport plan, you can download and read the whole document. It's not too long, at your leisure. So we published our plan back in January, and we went out to public consultation on that. And towards the end of the public consultation, the proverbial hit the fan. And we're all in a complete world. As a result, we saw travel patterns that were transformed overnight, with traffic down to a third of its usual levels, and public transport services focused on getting key workers to their workplaces and maintaining social distancing. Schools closed, obviously, for all but a handful of pupils, and thousands of employees took up working from home, which meant that the school run and the commute to work was significantly reduced. Yeah, sorry, I think I'm having network issues. I apologise if hopefully you're getting most of what I'm saying. So yes, as the people's travel reduced, we saw a dramatic downward trend in air pollution and in traffic levels. And at the same time, as has been mentioned earlier, people started walking and cycling more and exploring their local area during their daily permitted exercise. And people who were not previously cycling regularly were now using their bikes on a daily basis. Then on the 9th of May, the Secretary of State for Transport announced a £2 billion package to support active travel to help the country emerge from the coronavirus crisis, of which 250 million is for swift emergency interventions to make cycling and walking safer. We've still got a little bit of information to come on how that money will come forward, how much Birmingham's share might be, but we needed to do some very quick planning for that. Obviously, a couple of days later, the Prime Minister and the government then published their national COVID-19 recovery strategy, setting out the conditions for easing lockdown and the steps that will be taken in England to enable more activities to take place as we continue to control the spread of the virus. So we, at that point, wrote the quickest transport plan we've ever written. I think we reckoned it was 91 hours from inception meeting to publication. So apologies if there are any typos. What we wanted, crucially, was to ensure that we can have a low carbon, clean air recovery after COVID-19. So we very much did align to the draft Birmingham Transport Plan that we had already published. This does not replace a full Birmingham Transport Plan, which will be published later in the year. And for those of you who responded to the consultation, thank you very much. We're working through those responses, working on our consultation report, and so that we can take forward a final plan later in the year. But at this point, we're building on what we'd written and aligning with the principles of that draft transport plan that we published. And on the left there, you'll see some of the challenges and opportunities that we'd already identified in that draft plan. None of those have gone away. Those are all still there. Climate change is still absolutely an important crisis that we must address. And Birmingham is still committed to being carbon neutral by 2030. And similarly, air quality, as Mel has mentioned, we're still going ahead with the clean air zone. And particularly now that there has been some suggestion from the World Health Organization that there is a potential link between high levels of air pollution and the death rate from COVID-19. So absolutely bringing that into sharp focus for us. On the right, some newer challenges and opportunities that we identified from the current situation. Repurposing space. There's an increased need for ensuring safe space for walking, cycling and social distancing. And at the moment, with a lot of leisure facilities closed and schools only operating in a limited capacity, we need local streets to be safe for people to enjoy and for children to exercise and to play. Let's just check. You should be looking at a challenges and opportunities slide, but Mel's saying she's not seeing that one. Mel, if it is not showing the right slide, then if you want to take control and move it forward, then please do.
Okay, it's still on the title page of your.
Okay, it should be on challenges and opportunities if you want to take that and move us forward.
Okay. Oh, right, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, it's there now. Yeah.
Sorry, seems like my network is on the blink for now. Yeah, then we're looking also at economic recovery as well as the economic growth. That is, there is that recovery. We need to support businesses in our city to survive that current lockdown and to reopen when they can, but remodel their operations to make sure it's safe for staff and customers where necessary. And we're going to say it again, but that low carbon clean air recovery is essential. We've had reduced pollution and reduced traffic over these few weeks, but we want to lock that in now. And I think our boss has come up with a great phrase of lock it from lockdown to lock in, one of those cheesy phrases for us. Mel, if you're able to put us onto the vision page, which I think some people may have anyway. So what we did for this plan, we took the words in light type there are the original vision that we'd put into the draft Birmingham Transport Plan. And the words in bold are what we added for this emergency plan. So the vision for Birmingham's transport network is for a sustainable, green, inclusive, go anywhere network and for low carbon, clean air recovery from COVID-19 lockdown. Safe and healthy environments support stronger communities and will make active travel, walking and cycling the first choice for people making short journeys. A fully integrated, high quality public transport system will be the go-to choice for longer trips. In the short term, limited capacity on public transport will be offset by increased space for walking and cycling and by reduced travel overall. And a smart, innovative, carbon neutral and low emission network will support sustainable and inclusive economic recovery and growth, tackle climate change and promote the health and well-being of Birmingham citizens. So we had we had 4 big moves in our original Birmingham Transport Plan, and for the moment we've stuck with those 4 big moves. We are expanding them in the main plan, but the first was reallocating road space. So in this for this plan, this is a lot about making that safe space for walking and cycling and social distancing. But what we do want to do is also look for opportunities to improve public transport priority. And the reason for that, it might sound counterintuitive, but if a bus can only run with limited capacity, if you can fit, I don't know, 1/3 of the number of people you usually could, maybe a little less, then if you can get that bus running efficiently, running around its route more quickly, you can run it again and you can carry more people with the same size fleet. So that's why public transport provision remains really important in this situation. Mel, if you can put us onto the second reallocating some road space slide, please. Thank you. So we've got a number of measures that we're looking at here. A lot of the ones for reallocating road space is about taking a holistic look, looking at all our dual carriageways and saying, where is there potential for cycling and or bus priority lanes? Looking at high street locations, saying, are there places where we can take out on-street parking and look for footway widening? Are there footways that are currently fairly quiet but are particularly wide and we could upgrade them to shared footway and cycle track? And also looking at all the schemes that we've got currently planned to make sure that we are maximising those opportunities for walking, cycling and public transport. We've also looked through our walking and cycling strategy at all the infrastructure we were looking at there and identified some that we hope that we might be able to bring forward, particularly with the increased funding from the government. And then on to the transforming the city centre, please, Mel. So what we want to do here is make sure again that we've got space for walking and cycling and public transport services, limit the access for private cars, but make sure that we've got space for businesses to operate. So if you click on to the next one, Mel. So the City Centre Traffic Cells Initiative, which you may have seen as part of the Birmingham Transport Plan, essentially means that movement between those coloured cells that you can see there, that's just an indicative map, but movement between those coloured cells is restricted for private vehicles, but is open for cycling, walking and public transport to circulate within the city well. And we hope that this will then reduce the traffic in the city centre itself and thus make it more pleasant and easier for walking and cycling. Again, looking at on-street parking across the city centre and look at where we can widen the footway and or where we can provide opportunities for parklets or for spill out business activity. So if a restaurant needs or a cafe wants to reopen, but they need to put their tables further apart, can we provide some outside space for them to increase how many customers they can fit in that area? The other thing we're looking at, particularly in the city centre, is bus stop locations and where there are pinch points. So, for example, at the back of the Bull Ring, where the 35 and the 50 stop, that's a very narrow footway. Looking at what we can do in places like those to either move a bus stop or make a bit more space so that when people are waiting, they've got the space for social distancing. Moving on then, please, Mel, for the active travel in local neighbourhoods. This is something we've started a little bit already with the local centres, Kings Heath and Erdington. If anybody's local to those, you may have seen we've put in more space for social distancing and queuing. But again, this continues to be about making sure that local areas are spaces where people are put first and the communities are strengthened by having that outside space that people can use, move around in and feel safe doing. So moving on to some of the measures that we're looking at. We particularly want to roll out more 20-mile-an-hour speed limits to improve the safety in local areas. And in fact, we are asking the government if they can change the legislation so that 20 mile per hour can become the default speed limit in residential areas, and then we sign by exception on main roads, because that will make it a lot cheaper and easier for us to deliver. So we hope that the government are receptive to that. Also looking at low traffic neighbourhoods, that's where a street that is primarily residential, part of it might be closed so that residents can still access their properties, but through traffic can't go through, and that should then again reduce the amount of traffic on that street. We're also looking, working with our schools, our school streets programme, part of which has been around, we've done some pilots around closing streets outside schools at the beginning and the end of the day. So looking at whether we can do that more and quickly to aid with social distancing in appropriate locations. And also, again, sort of looking at things like the footway widening. You saw that picture of Erdington on the previous slide. On to parking measures, please, Mel. So in this context, it's a lot of looking at where the land currently used by parking space could be repurposed fairly easily, particularly things like local centres and in the city centre where there is ample off-street parking not very far away. So people can still drive to those locations if they want to, but when they get there, there is that space for the social distancing. So for the next slide, please, Mel. So yeah, that is really looking for opportunities to widen footways. We're also going to be doing a little bit of communications and discouraging people from parking on footways, whether that's at home or when they're out and about, just so that those footways have got the full width intended for pedestrians, so people can pass each other and maintain social distancing. We've also got things like cycle and motorcycle parking that we want to increase the provision for, alongside that encouraging active travel. That comes up in a few of the big moves, but I think I've seen it flashing up in the chat alongside, so I've just highlighted that. And finally, then we've got a number of supporting measures on the next slide that we are delivering alongside. So the one of interest here is the returning to workplaces, and that's where things like using Modeshift STARS and talking to workplaces, we hope that we can support you as your staff are returning to work. The other thing, having had a conversation with National Express West Midlands, the bus company, yesterday, is they were saying that for them what's really useful is intelligence. So if larger workplaces are saying, actually, as of whatever date, 2/3 of our workforce are coming back, it's really useful for them to have the heads up on that, so they can make sure that what level of service they're providing at that given time is adequate for the demand. Because whilst the government is saying don't use public transport, there are people who have to. And, as long as we do maintain that social distancing, it's not really any more dangerous than being in the workplace. Perhaps if you do maintain that space and take sensible precautions like having hand sanitizer with you and face covering is recommended, you can still use buses and public transport. So as I say, Mel and Nick then have taken you through some of that support that we can give. But if you want to, we can also do things like set up on Modeshift STARS a specific, very quick travel survey for your staff, just finding out how they're planning to travel in the sort of new normal, and letting you plan accordingly, whether you need to provide more space for cycle parking, that sort of thing. But we can talk you through that. Finally, then, looking at the next steps. There's an awful lot in this plan. We can't necessarily do all of it. What's happening at the moment is it's a prioritization exercise, a look at what funding we can repurpose, where we can access more funding. Again, looking for more information from the government about how that additional funding is going to come to us, so that we can check the deliverability of those schemes. But we do hope to be able to deliver a good amount within that. And we're also putting timescales to some of the actions. So initially, that what can we do in the next few weeks? Temporary and emergency measures, such as we've done in those local centres. I think West Side Bid are also putting in some measures on Broad Street. I'm not sure. I think John McDermott may have joined us today. So they're supporting other organisations who can also do things like that. In the medium term, looking at when the economy is reopening gradually, but social distancing is still in place. So as we have a phased return to school and maybe some of the non-essential retail starts to open, what can we do in that period? And then that long-term transition to a new normal. I know that's the horrendous phrase that everyone's using. But what can we learn from this? We've all enjoyed that reduced pollution. I think many of us have enjoyed not having to commute every day. Can we look at more agile working? What can be done in that new normal as we return to our lives after the COVID-19? So thank you. I've probably gone over my time, so I shall let Mel wrap me on the knuckles and take back her slides for the next section.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. No, that was really interesting. And as you've heard, there is a lot going on. There's also a lot of support and guidance available, which will help when you're creating a travel plan for your workplace. And I'll be moving on to some information on that front in a moment. So following this webinar, as a bit of a call to action, really, I'd encourage you to register with Modeshift STARS. Having a look at the Modeshift STARS workplace travel planning system will really help you get a feel for how it works. But please do contact us if you need further guidance on this. We're happy to run through the system with you. We can also provide you with ready-made staff travel surveys, which Rebecca mentioned, and support you with your action plans as well. So I've just provided a list here of a few ideas of actions you may wish to consider for your travel plans. We've touched on some of these during the webinar, and I won't read them all out, but just to highlight a few examples, we have updating relevant policies, which we've definitely mentioned a few times. These could relate to flexible working, working at home, or staggered working hours, for example. Promoting the use of technology for meetings to limit travel is particularly relevant at the moment, but could be something that your workplace continues to promote in the longer term. Improving facilities for people cycling. Having somewhere secure to lock bikes up is essential if we want more people to cycle to work. So if you don't have decent cycle storage at the moment, could this be improved, or could you let your colleagues know where the closest cycle racks are to your workplace, for example? Another action may be providing suitable advice to staff who do need to drive. This could include our slower is safer messaging and reminding drivers that many residential areas of Birmingham have 20 mile per hour speed limits. And as Rebecca said, this hopefully will increase as well. It's also vital that drivers do not block pavements or cycle routes. So providing guidance or training to staff and delivery drivers about legal and considerate parking is really, really important. Quite often, the actions you include in your travel plan will be things you have in place already, but maybe they just need a little more promotion to staff or some changes to reflect the current situation. There are many other possibilities for actions, and lots of these can be found on the Modeshift STARS tool. So now we're coming to the end of this webinar, and I'll just make sure you all have our contact details and signpost you to some of the support and guidance out there for you. Please do contact us using the connected@birmingham.gov.uk email. If you'd like to receive our regular Birmingham Connected updates, you can also let us know using the same email address. Downloadable guidance sheets for Modeshift STARS are available on our website as well. And that's the link birmingham.gov.uk/BTN. Other useful links here that I've listed include advice on safer travel and agile working from our colleagues at Transport for West Midlands, information about Birmingham's Clean Air Zone through the Brum Breathes website, and some links to cycling and walking support from some of our partners. I appreciate that there is a lot here, but we can always send these links to you by email. And just to round up now, I think there may be some questions that we want to read out now, but I think Jill and Rebecca have been busy responding as well via chat. So Rebecca, are there any questions that you'd like to read out to everybody?
I've been trying to answer some of them. I think there was some around dangerous driving, which is a very valid point, and we've been amplifying some of the I think it's ROSPA who have a campaign around that, particularly trying to link that with the Protect the NHS messaging from the government, because what we don't want is an increase in accidents. Yes, we can share the slides afterwards. Just having a look. Interesting point there from Rob. Rethinking the mindset of what it means to actively travel or commute. Could we think in terms of time taken rather than distance and use safe, established, easy, accessible routes? Take a more Dutch attitude to cycling, so there's no need to race and dress normally. Yeah, I'm hopeful that around that people will have been doing cycling and realise that more is within their abilities. I don't know whether Nick or Mel have any comments on that, or possibly Jill actually around cycling. So thinking about changing the attitude around cycling.
I can answer from a Modeshift perspective. So in a previous life, I was part of the Sustainable Travel Demonstration Towns at Darlington Borough Council. And something we did with our cycle signage was, rather than post distances on the signpost, it was posting times instead. So 5 minutes to the town centre rather than sort of in miles, to make people rethink on that side. From a Modeshift perspective, something we really advocate is travel zone maps. More so around walking zones, like 5-minute walking zones around schools and 10-minute walking zones around schools, to really, again, make people think about the time taken rather than the distance. So yeah, we'd certainly support that kind of idea.
Yeah, I know TFWM, Transport West Midlands, have produced maps in the past for some of the university settings to show how long it takes to time it takes to walk or cycle places rather than actual mileage. So, and they've been a good uptake of those.
Yeah, so Mel mentioned in her final slide about working with Transport for West Midlands, who can support on some of these similar issues around travel planning. And I think Jackie Miller is here with us from Transport for West Midlands, so she's been monitoring closely the situation, is also available to help and support people. There's also a couple of questions around SMEs and kind of how particularly we can focus on helping those, what we can offer to SMEs. Don't know whether that's one that Mel have any particular thoughts on.
Well, obviously, in terms of, well, before all the COVID-19 outbreak, we were offering from the Brumbreathes angle in preparation for the Clean Air Zone. There is funding there to support with upgrading your fleet and those sorts of things. So that's definitely worth looking at that website, the Brumbreathes website.
I'd say there's a comment there about, you know, the cost for employers to put in extra space for bikes and things changing and that. We don't know yet whether any of the money that comes from government will be able to be spent on that sort of thing and sort of on grants. We're guessing probably not, but we'll be pleasantly surprised if it can. We think it's probably going to be kind of the physical infrastructure that we put in, the kind of temporary and permanent cycle lanes and that sort of thing. But what I would say is if a business has any kind of secure car parking space, actually in the short term, if people are returning to work, could you say that, you know, a couple of those spaces get left open, pop in a crowd control barrier or something that's relatively cheap to hire, or buy just one or two that people can just prop their bikes up against, might be a measure. Also wondering whether in places like the city centre, whether neighbouring businesses might be able to share, if one does have that, you know, bit of underground parking, that they can allow people to put their bikes in, perhaps, you know, talking to a neighbour. And again, if people are talking to us, then we might know of businesses and say, oh, actually, you're very close to this other business, perhaps you can share your facilities with that. Obviously, issues of social distancing to be discussed. But in terms of changing as well, and in terms of sort of storage of equipment, in a situation where we are having to sit 2 meters apart, actually, you can probably, if you need to leave your cycle helmet and your whatever you've worn, you know, raincoat or whatever, there's probably a spare desk you can leave it on. I know that sounds a bit flippant, but there will be that bit more space within the offices. Let's see, there's quite a few more coming in. Plan. Are there any plans to increase bike parking in the city, or secure bike parking in the city? I'll have to plead ignorance on that one. I'm not sure what we're looking at in terms of increasing cycling. I think long term we would like to put more secure cycling in. Whether we'll be able to put any in the short term measures, I'm not sure. I think probably we have hit 11:30, so I think we've picked up most of the questions. What we will do is just go through that chat afterwards and check whether there's any issues that we haven't covered and need to get in touch with you. And as Mel said at the beginning, we have been recording, so we will go and check, but provided the recording has worked reasonably well, we will share that, and we will also share the slides. So perhaps over to Mel for the final word, if that's all right, Mel.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for attending and listening and for your questions. As Rebecca said, we'll get back to some of you if they haven't been answered. But yeah, we've covered some really interesting stuff there. So we've now come to the end. It is, as Rebecca said, gone 11:30 now. We hope it's been a useful session for you, and thank you very much for taking the time. And thank you very much also to Nick and Rebecca and Jill as well for your contributions.